Welcome to Off the Wall. My name is Trey. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch, listen, no matter how you're consuming the product. We appreciate you for being here. We have a really good show for you this week. We have an interview with wide receiver Max Novak of the Tulsa Oilers. He has had quite an interesting arena football career so far. So we dive into that, some of the highs, some of the lows of his career, and what he's looking forward to in 2025 and beyond. So his socials are below in the video description or the Spotify, Apple podcast description if you're listening through podcasts. So go give him a follow. Let him know you heard him on Off the Wall. And we'll dive into some IFL and AF1 news. Not a whole lot to get into, but still some stuff that we can touch on and talk about, and some rumors that are floating around that I think are worth addressing. But before we dive into any of that stuff, it's plug time. If you don't follow us on socials, please make sure you do so at Off the Wall FB. F as in foot, B as in ball. Off the Wall FB. Those are also linked in the description below. Make sure you're following us on Instagram, X/Twitter, and TikTok. We've also picked back up the Turf Tape series on YouTube and X and Twitch. So Turf Tapes is basically a nostalgic watch along of some older games, and hoping to get into some more recent games here soon. We'll see how that works out with some of the leagues we're trying to get the green light from. But basically watch some old games with some guests and some folks that are in the arena football community and truly love the game, share stories. We've been on a run the past couple of weeks where people are flexing the memorabilia they have for their favorite teams and teams that no longer exist. So it's been a really good time. So go over to YouTube or X and check those out and let me know what you think. And speaking of YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Go ahead, hit the like button, subscribe, all that stuff. And if you're listening on podcast through Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Rate the channel 5 stars, like the episode, share it with a friend, do all the things and stuff, help us continue to grow this thing out. I mention it every time, but we're making some really good progress in growing out the social feeds, growing out the podcast feed, the YouTube feed. So it's been really fun to see some of the hard work going on behind the scenes really come to fruition. So appreciate all the support from 2024 heading into 2025 and as we continue to grow this thing out. So without further ado, let's not waste any more time. Here's Max. All right, joining us on the show today, we have a wide receiver who has spent a couple seasons in different indoor and arena football leagues, most recently with the Washington Wolfpack in 2024, and he has signed on with the Tulsa Oilers of the IFL in 2025. Fun fact, he's one of the first players to follow Off the Wall on multiple socials, so shout out to him for being a day one. His name is Max Novak. Max, really appreciate you chatting with me today. How's the offseason treating you so far?
It's going good. First, I would like to take a moment to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, for him have all the glory forever and ever. The offseason is going exceedingly well. I'm very happy on where I am compared to last season. Last offseason was a curveball with a torn ACL right after the season in rehab, literally just in the nick of time to get back and play at what was full speed then, but definitely is a lot different now.
That's awesome. Yeah, you were a pretty impactful player for the teams you played with in 2024. So if we're getting a fully healthy Max Novak, watch out. Watch out, y'all. Watch out.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so.
Yeah. So before we dive into some of your story and like where you started with arena ball, tell us a little bit about your football journey and how you got involved with arena and indoor football. Like, what was that introduction like?
Yeah. So, I mean, my college days were kind of delayed and COVID hit and just like different coaches came and it was just a mess from 2017 to 2022. Like I only played 2 years of college football before it got stopped and I had the red shirt and then COVID hit and then another year got canceled. But I went to a BC Lions tryout up in Seattle and performed pretty well. I thought I was going to get a training camp invite from them, but ended up not getting the call, but got signed right away at the end of that camp to go play for the Wenatchee Valley Skyhawks in the old AWFC out here in Washington. Shout out Coach Rico Brown for that. I'm still so incredibly grateful to cross paths with that guy and him giving me my opportunity to play professional football.
Right. And so what was your first exposure to arena football? Was it that opportunity to play with the Skyhawks, or did you know about it previously?
I somewhat knew about it. I mean, I played youth arena football, surprisingly enough, when I was like, I think I was in 8th grade. We had a little league out here where I'm from in Tacoma, and it shut down really quickly after. I guess it wasn't very profitable, but
Yeah.
I knew what it was. I mean, that compared to what I do now is so much different, and it's such a
Right.
different game. But yeah, that was really my first like exposure to like the high motioning, is like trying to get ready for a CFL camp.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that introduction, going from that playing a couple years in college in the outdoor game to that indoor and arena game, what were some of those big adjustments you had to make as a wide receiver?
Well, I mean, them telling me to back up, and like that was the craziest thing at first, was learning how to high motion and just trying to like get used to the rules and how to manipulate space. It's so much different. Even like in the off season, I trained with the starting quarterback for the Calgary Stampeders, Vernon Adams. So
Oh, nice.
he was helping me get used to, like, they call it the waggle, but used to just moving around a little bit and just being a little bit more crafty running routes and just manipulating space and trying to open more space where, well, I can't. It's harder in arena than it is out there on the huge field.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of, it's just the speed. The speed is definitely a different thing. I'm sure everybody says that, but it's
Yeah.
true. Like trying to run full speed and then stop all the way on a dime is pretty difficult.
Yeah, and in the outdoor game, it seems like there's a lot more time for plays to develop. Like you could do a play action with a
Yeah,
boot, and it gives you, the wide receiver, like 4 or 5 seconds to get to where you need to be.
absolutely.
In arena and indoor,
Not the
snap,
case.
throw. If you
It
get
is
2 seconds, you're lucky.
right. And like I go out and run routes in the off season with guys, and I always feel like I'm so much slower because it's running a full 15-yard in route. It's from stationary is just like so much. It feels like forever. I always feel like I'm
Right.
late. And the quarterback's like, "Oh, you're going too fast." I'm like, "Whoa!" Like I don't.
Yeah. What are you talking about?
What are you talking about? This that's not what I'm used to.
Yeah. Yes, it could feel like you're running in sand at first when you're
Yeah,
used to being the high motion man. You're
yeah,
used to crossing the line at full speed.
absolutely. And
I can
then
see that.
converting from cleats to turf shoes too. That was a
Yeah.
huge, like I remember my first game in arena. I think it was my very first snap. I tried to wear cleats on the turf, on like the AstroTurf, and was running down on kickoff and like fell and tumbled. The first play, I had to switch into the turf shoes right away because they just weren't going to work.
One play in, you learned your first
Oh
lesson.
yeah, yep, that was my welcome to the league moment right away.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I want to start at the beginning of your arena career and kind of work our way forward. So you mentioned the Wenatchee Valley Skyhawks of the
Mhm.
AWFC, and then the
Yeah.
Topeka Tropics of
Mhm.
the CIF.
Yeah.
What was it like starting your career with those teams, and what was, I think we already touched on some of the biggest learning curves, but
Mhm.
like, what did you learn different things with different organizations that you were with at the beginning of your
Um,
career?
I definitely learned, at least in Wenatchee, learned like becoming a pro and just trying to just kind of make myself a leader on the team, right? Coming being
Right.
the youngest guy in arena. I mean, I was 22. I think I was 22 when I first started.
Mm,
So I mean, I always felt like the young pup. So I kind of had to. I was
right.
pushed by my coaches, and then our quarterback who came in uh midway through the season, he's just like, "Hey, you're the guy, man." He's like, you know what you're doing out there. Help these guys out, man." And you kind of get a feel like who's where and what they know. So it
Right.
was fun to just kind of converge all of our information and get on Zooms like this and kind of talk about it, what we're seeing and stuff. And
Right.
then when I got to Topeka, all of that pretty much went out the window because I didn't know nothing until I met my other OC OJ Simpson, who was a longtime arena vet, CIF
Okay.
IFL, and he really put it in perspective for me and broke it down and pushed me just enough to like really like explode as a receiver in this league.
Right.
So those are the two biggest things, like learning how to become a pro and become like a leader even as a young guy was like
Right.
my two biggest things in my first couple of years of arena.
Yeah, and if you can get those things like in your pocket and get those
Yeah,
things settled in quick, I'm sure it
absolutely.
makes the rest of it a lot easier.
It gives you a lot of confidence going out there
Yeah.
because I mean that's another thing that was hard to do, is just like get a flow of things. Like in the outdoor game, like you can get a flow, you can run the ball a little bit and kind of get mixed in, but in the arena
Right.
game, they're throwing it at you.
Yeah.
Right? We're not really running the ball that much.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so those are the biggest things that I've learned in at least the first 2 years.
Right. That makes sense. One of my favorite things about minor league sports like this is they always have outstanding names,
Oh
uniforms,
yeah. Oh
branding.
yeah.
Topeka Tropics, that's up there with one of the better
Top
ones in
top notch.
all of minor league
Top
and
notch.
sports. So what were your first thoughts when you saw them as a possibility of joining them? Where you're like, okay, I've got Team A and Team B, but the Tropics are pretty sweet.
Right. I didn't really have a team B. I mean, they were team A the whole way. I mean, trying to
Awesome.
like it was either that or go back to Wenatchee, right? And I wanted a little bit bigger exposure, and they had a good opportunity. And I mean, a couple coaches that just had a lot of experience in arena, and I knew that would help push me along the way with Tyus
Right.
Jackson, who was a longtime AFL vet, and then OJ too, which was
Yeah.
awesome. But yeah, those uniforms were sweet. I bought my own helmet because I was like, that's one I want to put up someday.
Yeah. That's going on the man cave wall
Oh,
for
for
sure.
sure, for
That's a
sure,
good one.
for sure. And then the Washington one too. I had my own helmet from the Rampage before they folded, and then I got it all painted, and the glossy purple with all the design on it was awesome.
Right. Yeah, you
I,
sneaky have one of the coolest collections of uniforms and helmets
I
and
do, I
throughout your
do.
short
It's
career so
awesome.
far.
It is awesome.
Yeah, you've got quite the Rolodex of branding.
Hmm.
So you played for a couple teams in 2024.
Yep.
First things first, let's rip the Band-Aid off. Let's talk about it. The Rapid City Marshals and that whole ordeal. So for those that may not know, Rapid City had the situation where the original players held out due to the issues with the AFL last year. And days before they were set to play in Washington, they were just like, nah, we're out. We're good. So the replacement players were signed on very short notice and the game was played. And Max was actually one of the players that was signed on. So talk to me about that whole experience because I'm just so interested in how this all went down from the player's perspective.
It was wild. I knew the coach. I met him in Topeka. He was with Washington. He parted ways with Washington, and he called me, and he was like, "Hey, like we're playing against Washington. I think this was three days before the game." And he's like, "Hey, like if you want to play, like you have the opportunity to come play with us." And I was like, maybe. Like who's playing? And they signed a lot of the Everett Royals semi-pro guys who never played arena before, and
Right.
then they or a quarterback flew in. It was a wild thing, but I ended up agreeing to play because I mean recent tape is the best tape. So I
Right.
was
Yeah.
like, you
Yeah.
know what? Like, I'll just go play and at least put myself in front of that coach because I'm right down the street. Like, I wanted to be on the team because it was right down the street. So this was a good way to get exposed to
Yeah.
him and
Yeah.
just have him see me against his own team. And I mean, I played well. The team did not play very well at all.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a ragtag bunch of guys that we had 1 2 hour practice the night before, and yeah, like the play calling was wild. Like what was heard in the huddle was it was like pro right, you run this, Max, you can get open, or well, I was like, what? Like it was crazy. But I
It was
mean,
playground ball, it sounds
it
like.
it really was. It was like playing recess.
Yeah.
But it was fun. I mean, glad I didn't get hurt or like just like boomed up a little bit. I performed pretty
Right.
well, which got the attention of those coaches, and then I ended up on Washington's roster the next week.
Yeah. So it all worked out. But
Yeah, it all worked out.
I was watching that game live. And let me tell you,
Oh yeah.
as someone watching that game live,
I'm pretty sure it
my
was the
jaw
only it was it a Friday? I think it was a Friday night game, and it was the only game on for the AFL. Well, I was like, well,
yes,
there's gonna be some people watching this.
it was a standalone game
Yes.
on the West Coast. So it was late, it was like that late night
Yeah.
like
Pac
Pac-12
12 after
after
dark.
dark. So it was just like I can't believe what I'm watching. Like this,
Right.
it was just unhinged
It was
football, and
it
there was
was
it was just unbelievable.
right. I think yeah, it was me and then another guy who was playing linebacker. I think we were the only two guys that scored in the game. Got signed to Washington
Yeah,
the next week.
yeah,
Me and my boy Johnny Navarro.
yeah,
Right. That yeah, it was really crazy. Just but I mean, grateful for the opportunity to play. I mean,
yeah.
especially after the whole Iowa situation get folding after week one against
Right.
Rapid City. I mean, I was glad that I was just able to go in and play. ultimately.
Yeah, so to go from the Iowa situation to Rapid City and then catching on in Washington and then
Yeah,
really finding your stride there, it's like,
right.
man, it took you a little time, but you found where you were supposed to be,
I
and
guess,
it being so close to home too, that
right.
has to be awesome.
Yes, that was, I was very grateful for Coach JR to reach out and tell me just come up to practice. We have a bye week, so you can get integrated with the system, and we're gonna go down to Salina, which was really cool. Yeah, thinking back about it, it was the crazy. It was like a month, maybe 5 weeks of just like insanity
Yeah, yeah,
from.
and I could only imagine. Like I,
uh,
like everybody I talked to that was involved with the AFL in some way, shape, or form last year. I'm like, I was exhausted reading and watching. Like I can only imagine
Right,
being a coach, being a player, being on the other end of these things where you're like, are we playing in 3 days?
right.
I don't know. Maybe.
I
Like,
didn't
I
believe it
don't know.
until we went there the day before, and then like Coach JR got us all together. It's like, we're gonna play this game. We're gonna put on a show. I was like, all right, dude, like whatever you say. I mean,
It's certainly going to be a show of something. Yeah.
right.
So you later signed on with Washington, like you said,
Yep.
played in that game and finished out the year with them.
Hmm.
Like I just can't like being so close to home. Like I just
Hmm.
really want to hit on that where it's like
Yeah.
it's such a unique opportunity where you usually to find these arena indoor opportunities, you got to go across the country. You got to go
Right.
from like your home state to a Kansas, to an Illinois, to Indiana. But
Right.
being able to just like, hey, I'm in my childhood home and I'm waking up and going playing arena football. Like that's kind
Right.
of cool, right?
It's one of the cooler things to tell people when they ask me, what do you
Right.
do? I'm like, I play professional arena football. They're like, what? Like they have that out here? I'm like, they do. You just got to go about an hour north and you got yourself a
Right.
team. And it was hard for me not to resign there just because
Right.
it's a home, right? Playing in front of the home team is the most fun. That because I
Yeah.
only got to play there one real game with Washington other than the Rapid City
Hmm.
game. And man, I swear I had a whole section packed out with all my family and friends, which was one of the cooler things in my professional career to like just and score in that game too. It was so cool just to see them all light up. And but the opportunity in Tulsa was, it was too hard to pass up, man. Having
Yeah.
that staff with what they got and just the IFL in general, man. I've always been a huge fan of what they do and how they run their organizations.
So you mentioned heading into 2024, you were coming off of a ACL and a meniscus injury. What was the rehab like for that, and what were some of the challenges and some of the I guess mental versus physical challenges that you had to overcome to get back on the field?
Yeah, it was a ACL and then a root meniscus tear, which is like
Oof.
the worst of meniscus tears you can get. So that sidelined me for the first 6 weeks after surgery. So I couldn't even put pressure on my leg. So I mean, I was in the house crutching around, trying to move, going to
Man.
PT. I think I was going 3 times a week initially, and then progressively got to one after they saw that you're, because I'm getting my certification in personal training, so
Oh, sweet.
I have a big background in that type of stuff, and it's just one of my other passions that I have other than football is just.
Yeah.
But the mental part really got me in just like sitting and not, because I mean I'm an active guy. I like to move around. I like to go to the gym, right?
Right.
Train the kids and stuff. So just that part of just sitting and being extremely patient and just trying to move my leg at home and just, it was definitely tough. And then the physical part was just trying to jump off one leg, right? Trying to, I mean, even take steps up the stairs was a really hard part, and
Yeah.
just taking it one step at a time, trying to really get my confidence back and trying to do a full speed break on my left leg after an ACL surgery was I don't think I fully got that back until February. So right before April when I left for Iowa.
Okay.
So it's definitely the most challenging uh circumstance I've had to endure in my career, but it only made me stronger. I feel so much better than I
Right.
did. And I thought I was good at the 9 month mark when I went and played, and now I'm what, 12, probably 16, 17 months post op now, and I
Right.
feel incredible. all the
Yeah.
strength is back, all the size is back, and feeling good to go.
Nice. Well, that's awesome to hear. And you touched on it, but I was going to ask you, like, how scary was that first full speed, that full
It
speed
was
break where
it
you're
was
like,
pretty.
am I going too quick? Like, is it too soon? Like, am I
Is
about
it
to undo 6 months of progress
so
here?
they did an extra incision and just an extra piece in my knee. They like cut out a piece of my IT band and reinforced it on the outside of my knee. So
Oh,
coming
geez.
back to the cutting was a little bit smoother, which it was. Like
Right.
I think it was 6 months I was allowed to start cutting, and it was super slow at first.
Oh,
Just
yeah. I don't blame you.
trying to the straight line was fine, but that's not the hard part coming back from ACL. It's
Yeah.
obviously throwing down a curl break or a post break and trying to change direction or really
Right.
burst. And yeah, it was definitely I was very hesitant at first, right? Trying to talk to my physical
As you
therapist,
should, as you should
right?
be.
Talking to my physical therapist and just trying to get his reassurance. He's like, dude, you're good. He's like, the strength is there. It just from the little test they do in the clinic. And he's like, dude, just give it a shot, record it, send it to me. And each week I was recording them, sending them to him, just making sure I was on progress. And
Yeah.
he was just like, dude, this is the fastest I would have ever cleared you, is right at 9 months to go play.
All right.
It's like, you're good to go. And I keep in touch with him still just because he's really, I mean, he's a fan of the story now and just like how I'm developing post ACL.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you're going to be the poster child for ACL recovery here soon.
hope so. Adrian Peterson was mine when I was like, he
Yeah.
came back in 7. I could do it. I was not
Yeah.
ready to go in 7 months.
No chance.
But I don't know if he had meniscus damage either. He might have just had ligament damage.
Yeah, root meniscus. When you said that, I was like, "Ooh, I don't know what that means," but that does not sound
Yeah,
good.
so that's like because your meniscus is like this, and when it's a tear right in the middle, they have to go in and like sew it back together. Like
Oh,
usually,
geez.
if it's on the side, they can kind of clip it. They can. I don't know if I think they just I don't know what the word is, but they kind of suture it into your femur
Okay.
or into your tibia, and it kind of is fine, and it's a lot easier to come back from. But yeah, just I couldn't put any pressure. When I stood up, it felt like my knee was like a balloon. It was
Oh,
just
geez.
so yeah, getting the swelling down and just getting able to bend my leg took felt like an eternity.
Yeah,
Now that
no
I look back,
kidding.
I'm like, man, 6 weeks ain't nothing. I've
Yeah.
got yeah, it was definitely one for the books, and it's just for I mean people that go through injuries, man, just don't stop, right?
Yeah.
Don't stop. If you stop now, it's I mean all your progress is worth nothing, right? Just
Yeah.
keep pushing, right? You have a goal in mind, keep getting there, keep
Yeah.
going.
The only thing worse than stopping is starting over. So,
Absolutely right. Don't stop in the middle, man. Quit.
yeah.
Stop when it's done.
Yeah.
Stop when it's done.
Yeah, it's going to be an adjustment from arena going to that indoor style, but
Yep.
like
Well, that's how it
as you
was in
mentioned.
that's how it was in Wenatchee and Topeka. So I'm
Okay, that makes sense.
I'm
Yeah.
semi used to it. I mean, I've only had the 1 year in arena football where it's the one guy in motion.
Fair. Okay.
So
Fair.
probably getting back to
Yes.
my roots a little bit.
Yeah, there you go. You're going back to what you know.
Yeah.
So as you say, you're signed with Tulsa for the 2025 IFL season. How did that come about, and what is it about Tulsa that made you want to sign there?
Well, it came about even before I signed with the Rapid City Yahoos in Washington, I had a call from Billy Pear, their special teams coordinator, who I happened to play with in Topeka.
Okay.
And he called me and he's like, "Hey, like, you want to come out here and play?" And it just wasn't the right time. I just came back from Iowa and I just wasn't feeling about moving right back out to Tulsa.
Yeah.
But I mean, whole year went through, played my year, and had the opportunity after the season to move to Dallas too, which is really good. And
Nice.
then
Okay.
that it made it really easy. I mean, I'll be 4 hours away from Dallas, and it was too hard of an opportunity to pass up. It was
Right.
especially, man, I've been a big fan of the IFL since I started playing arena, and I got to see how they run everything, right? Every team,
Yeah.
even Tulsa now, I mean, I hear great things out of Tulsa. Like
Yeah.
just the situation, the living, like just the way they're treated in the community, right? They're
Right.
like how they work in the community, it's awesome. And I couldn't be more excited.
Yeah. Tulsa's one of those teams where they're newer, but you could tell they're doing everything the right way.
Yeah.
Like they pack that arena out.
Oh,
Like
I'm so excited to
the
play on the black turf.
like the first couple seasons may not have gone the way they wanted to on
Mhm.
the field, but there's something about the city of Tulsa. They're
Mhm.
supporting the Tulsa
Right.
Oilers hockey team, supporting the football team. It's like, man, they love themselves
Hey,
some
they were
hockey
they
and
were
arena
close last
football.
year. I think. Well, I
Yeah.
think they were 1 or 2 games away from getting a wild card in the East.
Yeah. They had they got hot towards the end, but they just
Mm,
couldn't make up some of the ground. But
right.
yeah,
Tiebreakers and all that. I
yeah,
get it.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see what Tulsa does this year, especially like you said, that coaching staff,
Should be a fun
Marvin
group.
Jones, and then Andre Coles now.
Right.
He just has such a great track record of offensive success in the
Yeah.
IFL, and he's going to
Absolutely.
be the offensive coordinator for the Oilers.
Yep.
In case any of the listeners don't know, but what are you most excited about hopping into an Andre Coles offense?
I mean, hey, he's already reached out to us all, and he's like, we're gonna get down and dirty, and we're gonna score a lot. He's like, just that should be the mindset. Is every time we touch the ball, we're scoring.
Yeah,
Right? No matter how we have to do it, if we have to run the ball 4 or 5 times a score, or if we got to one and done it, or if we just got to dink and dunk until we get what we want. Right? I mean,
yeah,
and we're gonna start offensive meetings soon, and I'm just excited just to hear the philosophy from him himself over the Zoom
right,
meetings and just get even more excited than I already am. Right? 5 weeks to go,
yeah.
and I couldn't. I think I'm pretty excited to go, but I already know these meetings are just gonna get me more juiced up.
Yeah, I can hear it in your voice. I can see it in your face. You're just
Right?
ready to roll,
Oh,
especially like you said after that um more forgetful 2020. Well, not forgetful, but something you want to put in the rear
it
view
was it was
2024.
definitely an off season and a season of growth, just to kind
Yeah,
of re just reinvigorate my love for the game. Right? Just
right.
going. That's the best thing about this type of sport. It's just it just. I mean, we don't make a lot of money,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it really puts in perspective on how bad do you want to be here? How bad do
Yeah.
you want to do all the conditioning and all that? So, I mean, it's just it re-ups my love for the game and just how grateful I am to still be playing.
Yeah,
Right? This
honestly.
is I mean, there's a lot of people that wish they could be in our position. So I'm just hoping I can be an inspiration to somebody.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah, you absolutely are. So something else I wanted to talk to you about. You're actually wearing the shirt for it, so that's a good sign.
Yeah.
So I saw you've been getting into the content creation game with the on Instagram with RouteRunnr.
Right?
So it's Route RUNNR, no E.
Mhm.
What is it, and how did you get involved with it?
So it's a brand me and my cousin made. He's really big into the content creation. I'm more so the teacher, right?
Okay,
So,
okay,
but it's just something where we can reach out to young receivers and kind of give them tools, right, to develop just easy traits, right? I mean, growing up, it was hard to have like older receivers that had done it at a really high level give back and kind of break it down and like what do you do on a daily basis to get better at technique or route running or just overall mentality, right? And it's something
yeah,
that we talked about. It's like we want to break it down and give them the simplest things because like at the end of the day you don't need to do all of the super crazy footworks and all this crazy stuff you see like all these like big time content creators do. And right,
yeah,
sometimes I feel like it's spreading false information because half more than I'd probably say about 80% of the time I can't even do all that. So i
yeah,
have to i have to break it down even smaller and work on the stance and the starts and the 3-step breakdowns or the post breaks or just all that. And
yeah.
I feel like it's a good way to give back and just show people how I did it, right? I mean,
Right, yeah,
coming from like I didn't play Division 1 football. I played Division 2, Division 3 football
yeah,
and made it out because of how hard I worked at those little details, right? It's
yeah.
the easiest way for me to say what route runner is. It's a detail page to how to be very technically sound on what we're doing at the receiver position.
That makes sense, and I'm glad you brought up the thing about the some of the bigger content creators in the wide receiver space.
Right, and it's no hate to
I
them. I mean,
no, absolutely, absolutely.
whatever working for y'all, but it's just something
Do
that's
what you
all it's
do.
always like irked me. And I was like, man, I feel like I can teach and just give them better tools to be. It's you don't have to overcomplicate things.
Yeah, and that's the thing where it's like they show like the cameras on the feet, and they're doing like 8 different steps to do this, and I'm like, buddy, the quarterback has been sacked by the time
Right,
you're
he
doing
looked
all
at
this
you for
stuff.
about a quarter of a second and he said, no, I'm good.
He said,
We're
"Yeah,
gonna throw it over there.
I'm gonna check it down."
We're gonna throw it over there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like it's cute, it's cool. I
Cool.
like it. Do your thing, but like that's what I notice about the Route Runner page is that a lot of that is practical, where
Right.
it's like
That's what we want to
like
be for sure.
yeah. So it's awesome to see you in that space, and as someone who's kind of rising through the ranks of arena and indoor,
Mhm.
it's like, hey, it's working.
And
I'm literally doing this. And
it's
I'm sure when IFL season comes rolling around, you'll be able to point to that, be like, hey, this video I made,
yep.
I did that and scored a touchdown on
That's
this
the
play.
goal, is to just
Yeah.
obviously make the content of what we're doing and then put in the real time scenario. That's
Right.
the, like, my cousin was, I mean, dang near a D3 All-American at Linfield College where we went. And
Yeah.
it's cool to put his tape and then he puts my tape from arena. It's like, it works. What we do,
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't have to be overly complicated where your feet are on fire the whole time. Nah, go run full speed routes, go do full
Yep.
speed breaks, like run. You don't need to do all this like the ladder is good, time and a place, but at the end of the day, we're route runners. So that's what
Yeah.
we want to go do, right?
Hence the name Route Runner. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm excited to see where that page go. I'm excited to see your story continue to grow into 2025. I think it's a
Sure.
great story of perseverance, not giving up through the injury, through the
That was a tough
nonsense off the field, like all
one.
that
Right.
stuff as well. So working your way through the arena ranks, and I'm really excited to see what's in store for you in Tulsa in 2025. Where can people follow you on socials?
Yeah, you can follow me at Max Novak 0, MAXXNOVAK 0. Appreciate it.
All right, cool. We'll link all the socials in the video description on
Okay.
YouTube, and then the podcast description on Spotify and Apple
Cool.
Podcasts as well. So everyone
Awesome.
go give Max a follow, go follow Route Runner. They're doing some really cool things over there. You got any parting words for the people before we get out of here, heading into the 2025 arena and indoor season?
Hey, stay patient, be consistent. That's the only way I've stayed in the game so long. I've stayed very, very patient and I've been very, very consistent and had a lot of faith. Right. At the end of the day, you need faith. It gives you hope and perseverance, and you're just gonna keep pushing through.
Awesome, Max. Well, appreciate you. We'll stay in touch. We'll have to have you on again sometime, maybe after the IFL season, see how
Yeah.
things went in that first year. But everyone go follow Max on socials and let him know you heard him on Off the Wall.
Appreciate y'all.
Big thanks again to Max for joining the show this week and talking about his journey. That ACL and root meniscus tear sounds like no joke to recover from. And he had a pretty good 2024. And if he's feeling even healthier than he did then, now heading into 2025 in that Tulsa Oilers offense that they're building, I'm excited to see him do his thing. So again, go follow him on socials, go follow Route Runner on socials, all that stuff, and let him know you heard him on Off the Wall. So we'll dive into some league news here. We'll start off with the IFL, and in the IFL, we'll talk about the Mass Pirates for just a little bit. So Mass Pirates announced that they signed quarterback Kenji Bahar, and on the team's social pages, they label him as QB1, which I thought was interesting. So that suggests that the quarterback from the past few seasons, Alejandro Benefield, may be moving forward. He may no longer be in the picture, at least at quarterback for the Pirates. Whether that means he goes to a different team, I don't know. Is he done with football entirely? I don't know. Does he sign on as a part of the coaching staff in Massachusetts? Who knows? But I thought that was interesting that they labeled Kenji Bahar QB1 on those social pages, given that Benefield has been the quarterback for that organization for a very long time. Bahar spent some time in the Baltimore Ravens organization in 2021, and most notably played for the Houston Roughnecks in the USFL in 2022 and 2023 as well. So he should be a pretty good fit for both the Pirates and Bahar, depending on what other pieces are signed around him on the offense. Wide receiver Tio Redding, he's already been re-signed. Curious to see what other pieces they bring back. Do we see Isaac Zico? Do we see Thomas Owens? Do we see Jimmy Robinson again? Not sure if we see them back with the Pirates. I know some of those pieces got signed really, really soon before the season started, so it may be another 7, 8, 9 weeks before we even know any of that stuff. But Pirates are starting to make some moves on offense. They were stacking up the defense in the fall of 2024, and we were wondering, all right, what about the other side of the ball? They're starting to make those moves with Bahar. And then there are some rumors swirling that I want to talk about here about a big announcement that was teased on the Green Bay Blizzard show, Strictly Blizness, in I want to say it was December. And that rumor Again, this is not coming from the league or from that team show, but the rumor that's swirling some of the forums, some of the message boards is that the IFL may be launching their own independent streaming service, which is a very, very interesting idea. Don't have any specific information to work with or reference at this point. Again, this is all speculation and rumor. This could turn out to be totally false, and you'll be like, Trey, what the hell are you talking about? Who knows? But this could end up being very true. With some of these things that we hear about in the indoor and arena space, where there's smoke, there's usually fire, and this looks like a smoke situation before the fire is formally announced. So supposedly the streaming service would be free with some features available for purchase. So it's free for anybody to watch any game happening. So it's not totally paywalled where you got to cough up $19 a month to watch any game. Supposedly, it's going to be free for anybody to watch. But where the paid aspect of it comes in is if folks want to watch multiple games at once. So say you want to have a quad box like you do with NFL Sunday Ticket, so to say. That would be a feature that's part of the paid service. Engaging in the chat is supposedly one of the features that will be in the paid service, which I don't think that's a bad idea. If you were watching any IFL games last year, the chat is usually one of two things: really positive, like go team go, I love that guy, this is my favorite player, or really toxic, opposite end of the spectrum, lots of negativity being thrown around. So paywalling the chat may not be the worst thing in the world to kind of cut down on some of that nonsense that can be distracting from the game at times. But I think it's a really strong idea. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't worried about the execution. The stream quality varies drastically from team to team, venue to venue in the IFL. And unless things have changed dramatically this offseason, it could create a complex situation where you're putting some of these features and some of these games behind a pseudo paywall, so to speak. Before, if a stream was not so great on YouTube, you can kind of lean on the, hey, it's free, this can happen. Sorry, we're trying our best. You can lean on that, which the league did multiple times, especially at the beginning of the 2024 season. I remember specifically the Jacksonville Sharks at the Massachusetts Pirates. I think the first quarter of the game was only available to be viewed through Facebook Live from a member of the Sharks coaching staff that was on the sideline or one of the fans. Like we were literally watching a Facebook Live instead of the YouTube feed because it was just down. It just wasn't happening. So that's something that you have to be worried about. And then again, paywalling it, that puts you in a spot where you have little to no room for error to fix some of those things that were problems, not for the majority of the season, but at least for the first couple weeks of the season, and then towards the end. The stadium deal for the playoffs, that was a disaster. It stunk out loud. I don't think it's any secret at this point. But that being said, there were some teams that had some really, really amazing streams. San Diego Strikeforce are one that their streams are always immaculate. Like it's just super high quality. Announcers are great. The camera work is great. It's just overall so good. Frisco had a pretty good one. RIP. They won't be back next year, but that's just to show that there are some good ones. It wasn't all bad all the time, but when the streams were bad or non-existent, that seems to outweigh some of the good that was happening in the league. So again, I think this is a great idea, but ideas are absolutely worthless unless you can execute on them. And that execution piece is what I'm really worried about. So hopefully they made the improvements from team to team to really support the initiative if it does prove to be true, because I think this could be a step in a positive direction, but we'll have to see how it shakes out, if it's true at all, or what that big announcement actually is. So flipping over to the AF1, not a ton to get into here either. Teams are starting to fill out their rosters, but a couple signings that were very notable in my eyes that I want to highlight here were with the Arizona Bandits. So the Arizona Bandits signed wide receiver Larry Beavers and wide receiver Akil Greer. So Arizona's looking like a team that they can make quite an impact right away. And just the way that they're building their roster out with some really veteran players at some key positions. You're talking wide receiver and Larry Beavers, who's been around for a very long time in the arena game. You're talking like since 2016, 2017 at least. He's been involved in the arena game. So he's got tons of experience. You're talking about Ulrich Jones, that's already signed to the defensive side of the ball. You're talking about Jeremiah Spicer, who's already signed to the defensive side of the ball. So they've got veteran presence in some of those key areas. It's just a matter of how those other pieces can mix with that veteran presence and really grow as the season goes. So quarterback, still a question mark to me. I think they need to bring in somebody with a veteran presence. Coaching, we talked about it in episodes past where coach has plenty of coaching experience at the high school level locally in Arizona and has arena football playing experience. But how will those two worlds meet, and how will that work out to coach and call plays and do all that stuff in year one with this brand new team? We'll have to wait and see. But I mentioned Akil Greer coming over from Wichita, of course, after Wichita went dormant, and it's a messy situation in Wichita from what I've read and what I've heard. So Greer was able to land on his feet with Arizona, and I'm super excited to see what he can do, because he really started to turn it on with Wichita towards the end of last season, and I think he'll be able to pick up where he left off, assuming that the quarterback situation can get ironed down. They can get somebody that can get him the ball, because that was honestly the issue with Wichita towards the beginning of 2024, was that quarterback was a question mark, and we didn't know who the guy was until the end of the year. So Greer benefited from that consistent quarterback play. He'll do the same, and Beavers will obviously do the same in Arizona. So Arizona looking like they're going to be a very fun team in that division with Washington, Oregon, and Billings. So the West is quietly developing into quite a competitive division, and we could be in for some fun late night AF1 football on the West Coast with some of these teams. Again, there are other signings happening. This is just the couple that I thought were very notable. Teams are starting to build out their roster depth through tryouts that are happening across the country. Wilkes-Barre just recently posted about tryouts that they had. Arizona's done a couple rounds of tryouts. And of course, they got the scouting combine set for early February. So as we get closer to training camp, means we're getting closer to the preseason, which means we're getting closer to the regular season kicking off. So we're only 60-ish days away. It'll be here before we know it, and I'm sure we'll have some more fun announcements, and not just the AF1, but in the IFL as well over these next couple of weeks. I do want to give a shout out to the AF1 page. They had a really good interview with Southwest Kansas Storm head coach Gary Thomas that I highly recommend checking out. They touch on where the Storm are in terms of 2025 preparations, and they also touch on their air quote unorthodox approach to the 2024 season that both helped and hurt them. I thought it was a really good, transparent conversation with Coach about his transition to the arena game and figuring out what worked, figuring out what didn't, and gave put out some of the fires of some of the naysayers that may or may not have ranked them 10th out of 11 teams on a way too early power ranking in 2025. Maybe, I don't know, allegedly. So I thought it was a really good interview. Highly suggest checking it out on YouTube or X, depending on wherever you consume that content. And that's the show. Thank you so much for taking the time to check it out this week. Big thanks again to Max for joining the show today and talking about his journey so far and what he's looking forward to in 2025. Again, if you can give us a follow on socials at Off the Wall FB, F as in foot, B as in ball, Off the Wall FB. We're on Instagram. We're on X/Twitter. We're on TikTok. And if you're watching on YouTube, thanks again. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with a friend. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, do the same exact things. Rate the show page 5 stars, share an episode with a friend, like the episode, all that stuff, all the things and stuff. It really helps out. So again, go follow Max and RouteRunnr as well. Links to their socials are in the description. And I'm really looking forward to seeing some of the news that comes out over the next couple of weeks. And again, we're getting back into a rhythm with the turf tapes, have some exciting guests lined up for that over the next couple of weeks. So make sure you check that out if you haven't already on YouTube. There's only 24 hours in a day. The fact that you chose to spend 44 minutes of that watching the show, listening to the show, really appreciate that and really appreciate all the support so far. So have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next time.